Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Ramadan Kareem. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the Blessed Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. As we greet you on this, the sixth day of Blessed Ramadan, here in my native island of Trinidad in the Caribbean. We did not see the moon. We did not have evidence that the month of Ramadan had commenced on Laylatul Jum'ah, and hence we could not fast on Yawmul Jum'ah. And so our first day of fasting was on Yawmul Sabt. And so today, Yawmul Khamis, is our sixth day of fasting. And the questions are coming to me from left and from right and from top and from bottom, from all around. The questions just keep on coming to me concerning how do we begin the fast of Ramadan. So many questions, and it is really something disturbing, truly disturbing, that what was never a problem. I was a student in Pakistan for so many years, and the problem in Pakistan in the 1960s was the government would declare one day to be the beginning of the month, and the ulama would challenge the government and say, "No, you're wrong." And the country was siding with the ulama against the government. And eventually, the government had to concede, and then they established a committee called the Ruyat Hilal Committee, the committee to announce that the Hilal moon has been seen. And that solved the problem. And the whole of Pakistan now has the commencement of the month of Ramadan and the celebration of Eid al-Fitr based upon evidence, evidence that the moon has been sighted. And when the moon is not sighted, then of course the month would have one more day. Now the question that is coming is, why can't we all fast on the same day? Would it not be a manifestation of unity in the ranks of our Muslims? Does it make sense to you, Sheikh, that we should all fast on the same day? And if we all fast on the same day, then we can celebrate Eid al-Fitr on the same day. Sheikh, what is your response? And now, here is my response. If primary guidance comes from the Quran, it doesn't come from a piece of paper. It doesn't come from a calendar. It doesn't come from a conference in Istanbul. Primary guidance comes from the Quran. And guidance comes from the Hadith as well, to the extent that the Hadith is in harmony with the Quran and not in conflict with the Quran. So, what does the Quran say? Does the Quran tell us that we must all fast on the same day? Does it do that? There is only one verse of the Quran which commands the fast of Ramadan, and it is verse 185 of Surah Al Baqarah. And this is what it says: بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم إلى آخر الآية. It says whosoever from amongst you gets the evidence that the month of Ramadan has commenced, it is now obligatory on him to fast. So the command is not directed to all of the ummah. It is directed to only that part of the ummah which has the evidence that the month has commenced. And the other part which does not as yet have the evidence that the month has commenced cannot begin the fast. They will have to wait one more day. Listen to it again. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whosoever from amongst you, minkum, gets the evidence that the month of Ramadan has commenced, on them it is obligatory to fast, not on all. And those who do not have the evidence as yet that the month has commenced, for them there is no fasting. It is not obligatory on them. They have to wait one more day, one more day in order to commence the fast. So here is the verse of the Quran which makes it plain and clear that Allah is not directing uh, his, his attention to the whole of the Ummah, all of us, that as soon as the month, the evidence is there that the month has commenced, because somebody saw the moon in Timbuktu, that all the Ummah, everybody must now commence the fast. No, it is Faman Shahida Minkum, recognizing that all of us would not have the evidence at the same time. That is the beauty of the language of the Quran, Faman Shahida Minkum Shahr. And so, this is my answer to you, that it is not a part of the divine plan. The system of time in Islam does not want us all to commence the fast of Ramadan on the same day, and therefore to celebrate Eid al-Fitr on the same day. And those who are struggling and struggling in a misguided struggle, that we all must commence the fast on the same day, and all must celebrate Eid al-Fitr on the same day. My warning to you is you are abandoning the Quran. Go back to the Quran and study the Quran. The word shahida, faman shahida minkum shahr. The second thing I want to say is that when Allah speaks about evidence, those who have the evidence that the month has come, Ramadan, it is obligatory to fast. The question is, what is evidence? And the answer has to be, what was evidence in the Sunnah? Do you mind if I say that? Do you have any objections to that? I'm asking you, what was evidence when the revelation came down for the first time? And we are now fasting for the first time in Ramadan. What was the evidence for the Prophet ﷺ? What was evidence for the early Muslim, the Aslaf? Was it an aeroplane flying in the sky? Or was it a high powered telescope or microscope? What was it? What was evidence? Was it a chart? based on scientific calculation. What was the Sunnah? Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Hmm? I have to raise my voice now when I ask, what was the Sunnah? Because it becomes very embarrassing and uncomfortable for some who have abandoned the Sunnah to hear that question. The Sunnah was that Allah, who required of us evidence, Allah gave us the tools, the apparatus with which to collect the evidence, to seek the evidence. And the tools or the apparatus were the human eyes. Yes, one of the greatest of Allah's inventions is, sorry, creation, is human sight. Yes, human sight. And so the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam would himself look up in the sky. That was the Sunnah. And all his companions would look up in the sky. That was the Sunnah. And they would, of course, look at the sky at the time when the sun was setting. They looked at the sunset, and the sun used to set at that time in the west, and it is still setting in the west up to this day. لا تد- لا تبديل لخلق الله. It rose in the east and it set in the west. And it will always rise in the east and it will always set in the west. لا تبديل لخلق الله. There is no change in Allah's creation. And so the sunnah is to look for the new moon. The sunnah is to look for the evidence that the month has commenced with our eyes that Allah gave to us. That is the sunnah. And if you have abandoned the sunnah today, either innocently like sheep and goats, or deliberately as part of a plan to dismantle the religion of Islam, if you have abandoned the Sunnah and you no longer use your eyes to look for the evidence, and you do not want us to use our eyes to look for the evidence that Ramadan has come in, we say to you, we don't want to abandon the Sunnah. We want to remain faithful to the religion as it has come to us from the Quran and from the Prophet. Allah's blessings be upon him. So here is my answer to you. If you have been following some chart or some calendar, or the Imam in the masjid has the one, he's the one who has to do everything for you, and he simply informs you, and then you begin the fast. The answer to you, the warning for you, is you better be careful and look in the sky and ensure if you do not see the moon, if you do not have the evidence, that someone else has the evidence and it is evidence which is acceptable according to the law of evidence. You have to be careful because if you violate the command of the Quran and you commence fasting without proper evidence, legally accepted evidence, then the consequences can be tremendous loss for you. Tremendous loss for you. You would be surprised on Judgment Day to learn of all the loss you suffered because you did not commence the fast of Ramadan in accordance with the law. Having said that, we can now proceed to the other questions that we have. And we have a large number of questions in the world war. There is a world war which is coming, yes, and it is called the Malhama. And in that Malhama, 99 out of every 100 who fight for the mountain of gold will be killed. I don't have the time, sorry, to explain the hadith about the mountain of gold. Okay, please do your homework. I have given an interpretation of the hadith, which is in Sahih Bukhari. And when I interpret the Quran and when I interpret the hadith, I can be right and I can be wrong. And so we always say Allah knows best. If the interpretation is correct, it becomes truth, and the truth will survive. And if the interpretation is wrong, then it will go down the river and tomorrow it'll be forgotten. And so the Malhama is the great war. The Christians and the Jews call it Armageddon. And we know from Surah Rahman, we know that in that war, Allah is going to destroy those who are a people who deny and reject the truth. And he reminds them with a question that is repeated 31 times in a single surah. In the first and only time in the whole Quran this has occurred. That one ayah is repeated. Ayah means verse. One ayah is repeated 31 times in a single surah. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. He's referring to two people, and he's warning them. Which of the signs of Allah are you going to reject? Hmm? Who are the two people? Then he tells us the answer. يا معشر الجن والإنس يا معشر الجن والإنس. He's referring to a, a, a human beings who are evil and to jinn who are evil. And there is an alliance between human beings and jinn in that gathering or that jama'ah, double jama'ah of evil people who reject the truth. And these are the ones who are going to be destroyed. And my analysis, my conclusion, is that Allah is speaking about the alliance between evil people and evil jinn in modern Western civilization. This civilization has come to demolish the religious way of life. This civilization does not believe in the hereafter. It's just lip service. And so it's modern Western civilization which is going to get the beating of its life in the Great War. Uh, does Russia form part of modern Western civilization? No, it does not. It does not. Does China form part of modern West? No, it does not. And it is very plain and clear, at least to me, I don't know for my critics, that the Great War which is coming, which I would recognize to be the Malhama, but because my critics differ in everything that I say, they probably have another view. And you must not listen to me alone. Remember that. You must also listen to them, listen to my critics, and listen to others. And never, never accept my opinion, never accept my view, unless you're convinced that I am correct. If you are going to mechanically accept everything that I say as the truth, you're dangerous to me. Yes. Because if I make a mistake, you will compound that mistake because you're not critically assessing everything I say. Iqbal will be very pleased with a student who comes after him, who critically assesses what he has taught. And if they find that he has made a mistake, although he's a great, great scholar, they very politely mention that here is a mistake that he's made. But when you point out the mistake of a great scholar, you do it in a very polite way. You will spend 100 times the amount of time in recognizing all the truth which has come from him. Yes, recognizing his greatness as a scholar before you point out a mistake that he has made. And when you point out the mistake that he has made, you're not doing that to demolish him and to cause your own self and your own profile to rise high. That's not the way of men and women of integrity. No, when you point out his mistake, you still say, despite the mistake that he made, he's still a great scholar. And it is not our intention in pointing out a mistake that he made to get people to turn away from him and turn to us and to demolish him as a scholar. That's the work of Shaitan. And so, yes, people can make mistakes. I gave an interpretation of the Malhama. I gave an interpretation of the mountain of gold. I gave an interpretation of the ayah of the ayat of Surah Rahman. If you look through my videos, you'll find a lecture. I believe it was delivered in in a city close to Manchester, perhaps in Britain, um, and it is entitled Surah Rahman and Akhir Zaman, in which Allah says that He's going to deal with them. Sanafrugu lakum ayyuha thaqalan. Those both of you who are laden with sin. I'm saying the alliance of human beings and jinn were all evil in modern Western civilization. And therefore it is in this malhama that Allah will destroy modern Western civilization. And what remains after the malhama of the modern West will play no significant role again in history. But Russia does not belong to modern Western civilization. Rather, Russia is the target of the West. They have consistently been hostile to the Orthodox Christian world ever since they launched the Crusades. So it's more than 1,000 years now, or almost 1,000 years now, that they've been waging war on that part of the Christian world, which is not modern Western Christianity. So my conclusion is that the alliance of Russia and China, the alliance of Russia and China in the modern world is the most significant, the most important event to have occurred in history since the birth of modern Western civilization. May I repeat that? I have said, this is my view, that the present alliance between Russia and China, it's a military alliance, it's a political alliance, it's an economic alliance, it's a monetary alliance. That this present alliance, from a nuclear power, Russia is a nuclear power, and China is a nuclear power. This alliance is the most important event to have emerged in modern history since the birth of modern Western civilization. And it is this alliance which is checking the rampaging West. The, the Western world rampage through the world, stamping their bloody feet all over the world. But now, no more. If they could still do it, they would have already invaded Venezuela. The evidence is as plain as daylight. They dare not intervene in Venezuela militarily because Russia will deal with them. Mhm. So the war which is coming is one in which Russia and China, of course, they will be badly damaged, but they will survive. And the war will also allow Pax Judaica to replace Pax Americana because the modern West will be finished, will be finished as a power in the world, superpower. How is it possible for Russia to survive from the Great War and yet for Israel to replace the United States as the next ruling state in the world? There is one subject that I have consistently refused to explain, and that is the relationship that exists between Russia and Israel. And I am not going to speak on that subject. Those of you who are interested can do your own thinking. Yes, I will not speak to you on this subject even in private because I have my own insights and I don't think it is proper for me to share my insights on everything that I understand. And so now, on the subject of Dajjal, next question. How is the red heifer, related to the Khuruj of Dajjal? The Jews are waiting for the sacrifice of the red heifer in 10 to 11 months. And they believe that the red heifer is a sign of the coming of the Messiah. Hmm? This is not Islamic eschatology. No. The red heifer belongs to Jewish eschatology. And I have um, a policy. And my policy is that I try as much as possible to restrict myself to Islamic eschatology and let the Jewish scholarship deal with Jewish eschatology and let the Christian scholarship deal with Christian eschatology. The same thing with Hindu eschatology. When we established the Institute of Islamic Eschatology in Pakistan and make dua all the time and be able to establish the world's first Institute of Islamic Eschatology and do it in Pakistan. Why Pakistan? Because I studied Pakistan. It was the Pakistan who gave the money to Maulana Fadl Rahman Ansari to build the institute and to pay the stipends for the students. Yes, I was a student and I used to get 125 rupees a month as a student in a stipend. And if you had 5 rupees in your pocket, you felt very good. Yes, because to go and travel from one part of the city to another part used to cost only 4 annas. And they didn't pronounce it as 4 annas. They used to say chawanne, 25 paisa. So 5 rupees was a lot of money. I have to be forever grateful, yes, for those who struggle and struggle and struggle to build that institute where I studied, and to all those who came and taught me there in that institute. And this is part of my recognizing the depth I owe to the people of Pakistan, that I want this Institute of Islamic Eschatology to be established in Pakistan. But whenever it is established in Pakistan, it would be a dream if we could have in that institute a branch devoted to Christian eschatology. And we'll have Christian scholars there who will develop and research and explain Christian eschatology. And the same thing for Jewish eschatology. It would be a dream if we could have the Hindu scholars there at that institute. And those Hindu scholars would research and develop and then explain Hindu eschatology. And the same thing for Buddhist eschatology. Imagine how exciting it would be for people who think and people who long for knowledge to be in such a place where Hindu eschatology and Buddhist eschatology and Jewish eschatology and Christian eschatology and Islamic eschatology were living side by side in mutual respect. Hmm? And there's cross fertilization going on because I have learned from Christian eschatology. Oh, yes. I have learned when I visited Moscow and I met Christian eschatologists in Moscow. I learned from them. Yes. So it will be a wonderful time at that time. This is my view, that they are the ones who should explain their eschatology. So I am not going to comment on the red heifer. Next one. Next question. How can a wind from Yemen or from Syria at the end of time take the lives of humans and believers before the first trumpet is blown? I can't answer that question until I research it. I've not had the time to research it because there are many parts of eschatology I have not touched it yet. I move very slowly in my study of eschatology. I take only one step at a time because I want to build a foundation which cannot be shaken, not even with a bulldozer. So, from the countless ahadiths that there are, you'll only find that I have commented on a few, and there are so many more. But I'm going to leave the world as a happy man whenever the angel comes to take me, because I know I'm leaving behind talented students. I'm going to leave behind young men and young women who can think, who have brains, and who are courageous, and who are fearless, and who will extend the frontiers of knowledge in the years that lie ahead. And I pray that from within their ranks will come the last shower. What is the last shower? Shall I tell you? The Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, he said, my ummah is like the rain. My ummah is like the rain. I do not know which shower is better, the first or the last. Does that need any explanation? Hmm? You have the capacity to explain it yourself. I don't know if you have the courage. So, next question. If Russians and Orthodox Christians are to be our allies, how can we as Muslims help them and guide them? A good question. The screen is shaking because I'm holding the laptop in my hands. Yeah. And uh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to move forward. Yes. Pull on the blind there. Pull on the blind. Yeah. Okay. What can we do? Let's get this right. What can we do to help and to guide our Orthodox Christian brothers? The first thing, excuse me, the first thing we must do is to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prophesied in the Quran that the time will come when a people who will declare that they are Christians, they will proudly proclaim that their primary identity is their faith, not their nationality, and therefore these could not be Western Christians. These have to be other Christians who will proudly declare, "We are Christians, inna Nasara," that they would be the closest in love and affection for Muslims. I know there are some who are not comfortable with what Allah has said in the Quran. They wish they could change what is in the Quran. Yes, uh, I know this. They're not at all comfortable with what Allah has said in the Quran. I don't know what kind of Muslims they are. I don't know. But this is what Allah has said in the Quran. And these Christians will emerge in the historical process. They will emerge as the people who will be closest in love to Muslims. At that time, when the Jews are the most hostile of all people to Muslims, and women of integrity, whose hearts have not been corrupted, and with whom we can have an alliance as brothers in common struggle. Most Jews are not like that. It is sad that this day has come, but it is facts. It is the fact that I'm speaking. And they are the most hostile of all people to us. This is now happening today. And so the Quran is saying that when that day comes, when the Jews are so hostile to you, the most hostile of all, a Christian people will be closest in love and affection for you. And my opinion, and of course, my critics differ with me. They differ with me in everything I say, everything. The, the opinion that I have is that Allah is referring to that part of the Orthodox Christian world, which is still Christian at heart, which has now not become a shoeshine boy of the West. I- I'm talking particularly of the small groups in Russia and the small groups in the Balkans who just long for um, the euro. We worship the euro. We want to be part of the euro world so we can live comfortably. We don't care for faith. I'm not talking about those Orthodox Christians. I'm not talking about Orthodox Christians who are primarily nationalists. Our dream is Serbian nationalism, and we are going to pursue Serbian nationalism by the hook or by the crook. And if the Muslims have to be slaughtered, we'll slaughter them. This is the Serbian nationalist. He is not an Orthodox Christian. He's a Serbian nationalist. So Allah is speaking about those who are Christians by faith, in whose heart there is faith, and who proclaim we are Christians. In Nasara, their primary loyalty is to their faith. And Allah is saying that these are going to become closest in love and affection for you. What can we as Muslims, if we accept the view that I have offered, that these are the Christians of whom Allah has spoken in the Quran, if you agree with me, Of course, if you agree with me, then and only then you'd want to support the Institute of Islamic Eschatology in Pakistan. Or why would you want to support my institute that I want to establish in Pakistan if you differ with me, if you consider me to be misguided? Hmm? It's only if you consider me to be rightly guided, only then would you want to support such an institute. So if you accept my view that the Orthodox Christian world that still remains faithful to the religion, these are the ones that are I who is speaking about. What can we do to support them, to assist them, to guide them? And the answer is the pivotally important issue between us and them is not the Trinity. It's not the Trinity. No. It's not whether Jesus is the Son of God or not. That is not the critically important issue between us. The critically important issue between us, which require us to act with wisdom, is Constantinople and the Hagia Sophia. That's right. And if you are listening to me wherever you are in Ghana, you're in Nigeria, you're in Senegal, you're in Kenya, you are in Tanzania. I have lovely, lovely, lovely students in Tanzania. Oh my gosh, I'm proud of them. My students in Tanzania. Yes, if you are listening to me, then take this message. We have to reach out to them to explain to them that after the Great War takes place, our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, he has prophesied that the next major event to take place in the timeline of events in Akhirul Zaman would be the conquest of Constantinople. It is a conquest which will take place after A F T ER, min ba'd, after, après. We have to say it, we have to translate it in so many languages because there are many people who have been brainwashed. I say of them, deaf, dumb, and blind, who believe that the conquest of Constantinople has already taken place, or who now concoct a false and fake brew that there'll be two conquests of Constantinople when the prophecy is about only one conquest of Constantinople. They believe that that conquest of Constantinople took place 600 years ago. Deaf, dumb, and blind. So we know that the conquest of Constantinople will take place after the Malhama. And we know that it'll take place quickly after the Malhama. One hadith says 7 months, and another hadith says 7 years, but that's a short period of time. And we ask the question, why would a Muslim army want to conquer Constantinople when Muslims already live in Constantinople? The Christian, the Orthodox Christian, the Greek Orthodox, the Armenian Orthodox, most of these people have now left Constantinople, and there are only just a handful left now. So it's a Muslim city now. So, Sheikh, why would a Muslim army want to conquer Constantinople? And the answer is, hmm, excuse me, we have to conquer Constantinople because if we do not conquer it, we will never be able to return Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world. That is the answer. And when we do conquer Constantinople, and this will come to pass because Nabi Muhammad, you know him? Yes, you know him? Prophet Muhammad? Yes, he is the one. He is the one who made the prophecy, and you can do nothing about it. He is the one who prophesied. And he praised the army and he praised the commander. Huh? لتفتحن القسطنطينية ولنعم الأمير آمرها ولنعم الجيش ذلك الجيش. These were his words. He praised the commander, he praised the army, and he prophesied that it will conquer Constantinople. And it is my opinion, and you should not accept my opinion unless you are convinced that I am correct. Otherwise, you pose a danger to me. That the conquest of Constantinople is necessary so that Hagia Sophia can be returned to the Orthodox Christian world. That is how we'll help them. That is how we'll help them. As soon as Hagia Sophia is returned to the Christian world, it's going to cause a revolution in the hearts of the Orthodox Christians. A revolution, traumatic change in the hearts, which are already moving in our direction. And they will then become closest in love and affection to Muslims. And so by the time Jesus returns, Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, they would be ready to live alongside us two ummahs, the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, led by Imam al-Mahdi, and the ummah of Jesus, of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, led by Jesus himself alayhi salam. These two ummahs will live side by side in brotherhood, in fraternity, in peace, and with love. This is how we help them. One more thing in my answer, and that is it would be a disaster, an unmitigated disaster, if that Christian world were ever to attempt to conquer Constantinople militarily. This is a message I'm sending to Russia. Why would it be a disaster? Answer: it will immediately provoke civil war in the house of those who worship Allah. It will cause civil war in in the house of those who worship Allah. They ilahukum wa ilahuna ilahukum wa ilahun wahid. Your God and our God is the same God. That's what we have to say to them. So Christians and Muslims will then be in a state of civil war, and that must be avoided. And therefore, Christians, we are sending a message to you. Do not make the effort to conquer Constantinople. Part of the reason for the First World War was because Russia was duped. Russia was duped by Britain and France. That if you join us in this First World War, you will get Constantinople. France, in particular, more than Britain, wanted Russia in the war so that Russia would be offered Constantinople. France had to do that because France wanted to recover territory which she had lost to Germany, Alsace-Lorraine. And therefore, France set the bait and Russia swallowed the bait. And this is one of the main reasons for the First World War, the Russian lust for Constantinople. I have to use the word lust because they acted foolishly. The Tsar of Russia was not that bad. He didn't want the war. But the other men around him who were not faithful, not faithful to to the Tsar, they were more faithful to France. They are the ones who took Russia into the war in order to get Constantinople. So do not make the effort. Do not have the desire in your heart that the Orthodox Christian world will wage war to recover Constantinople. Not at all. When we recover Constantinople, inshallah, when that Muslim army conquers Constantinople, then Constantinople can become a model of a state, a holy state, similar to Medina. Similar to Medina. The Mithaq of Medina brought into being a plural model of a state. That is what the Mithaq did. The Mithaq means the covenant or the constitution of Medina, which was negotiated by the Prophet ﷺ, which brought the state into being. It was a plural model of a state. We didn't rule over the state. No, no, no. We were one of the units in the state. The Jews were, the Jewish tribes were other units in the state, and pagan Arab tribes were units in the state. And they all lived together on the basis of political equality. Political equality. That was the state of Medina. And so Constantinople, when it is conquered, will then become a plural model of a state in which Christians and Muslims will live together on the basis of political equality. So there's no need for a Christian army to seek to conquer Constantinople. Do we have time for another question? Uh, do you recommend other scholars of Islam doing contemporary work? My field is Islamic eschatology. Yes. And I always decline to comment on other scholars. I always do that. No. I listen to them. I admire some of them. I'm worried by others, but I decline. I never comment on them. No. And I have to say, I have an assistant. MashaAllah, he's a young man. He's Hasbullah, he's from Singapore. And I'm confident that in the years that lie ahead, may Allah grant, he'll grow into a great scholar, inshallah. There are others, mashallah, who have studied eschatology from what I have done so far, my humble work, and who are now teaching eschatology, yes. I don't want to mention any names. I just want to mention only the name of Hezbollah. Um, and it is for you now. You must look around and see who are those who are teaching eschatology, who are growing as scholars of eschatology. So that when Allah takes me away, they're the ones who will take up the baton and move forward, inshallah. The next question is on plural marriages. Plural marriages is in the Quran, but today the world prohibits it. What is your answer? Well, the prohibition of riba is prohibited in the Quran. And today the whole world permits riba. What do you do? Answer. Regardless of which way the world moves, you must remain faithful to the Quran. And so, yes, Allah permits plural marriages. I have two wives myself. Uh, Iqbal had two wives, yes. Allah has permitted plural marriages. If the Quran has permitted plural marriages, then we must remain faithful to the Quran, regardless of the price we have to pay. This is enough for today. We've had a long session, and I pray that you will all take some food from what you cook to break the fast and give it to the poor before you break the fast. And secondly, it seems to me that the lockdown around the world is now slowly going to be lifted. But when the lockdown is lifted, you will see that those who have been brutally damaged by the lockdown are the poorest of the poor. Those who live like the birds. Every day they have to look for the food for the day. So they are working day by day and they're earning their income day by day and they're eating and their family eating day by day. And these are the ones who have suffered the most from the lockdown. So when the lockdown is lifted, if you have the means to do so, go search and find those who are lying in the dust and lift them up. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.